So, yeah, our top story, if you guys couldn't tell by the title of the episode, is Mustafa Ali. The era is over. He showed up earlier this year in TNA, and looks like he did about a 6-month deal, and that happens a lot in TNA. If you remember, if you go back, like Naomi when she came over as Trinity, she was on a 6-month deal. She did 6 months. She revitalized her career. She had a great run, and then she ultimately decided to go back to WWE. Now, Mustafa Ali, I think, is a little bit different. He did not leave WWE on the best of terms. So I don't think that his 6-month reign is going to net him another WWE contract. And based on what he was saying in his statement that he had released on Twitter, it looks like he might just be doing indies for a little bit longer. So this tells me that he's either going to go just do the indies for a little bit and just kind of figure stuff out, and then probably come back. I think that is a real possibility. Or he could get an AEW deal. Now, he is a former WWE talent that has a grievance against WWE. AEW likes those guys. The problem is a lot of times that doesn't really work out well for them. But Tony Khan is willing to pay guys like that quite a bit of money, especially if they are like anti-WWE and they're mad at WWE. He'll bring them in. The problem is they did that with Malachi Black, Rusev, and Andrade, and all three turned out to be malcontents. That they weren't happy in WWE. They came to AEW, weren't happy in AEW. Andrade has since gone back to WWE. Malachi Black's contract's coming up. I don't know when. There's been conflicting reports about that. I did a story on it last week. So there was some people thinking it was coming up here pretty soon, then other people thinking it's going to happen next year. Who knows really when his contract is over, but it looks like once his contract expires, AEW is just going to let him walk and go right back to WWE. And God knows when Rusev or Miro, when his contract is over. Nobody really knows. But let's just keep the focus on Mustafa Ali. Ali been one of the key contributors to TNA since his arrival, I think in February. I think it was February. He recently announced that he'll be leaving the company to focus on independent bookings. In a heartfelt and politically charged statement released on August 1st, Ali expressed his gratitude and pride in his time with TNA. In his statement, Ali reflected on the progress TNA has made over the past 6 months. He very much sounded like he was a president leaving office, which is pretty funny. He mentioned how the company has developed into one of the strongest fan bases in wrestling. He made historic investments in the X division and achieved several milestones, including the cover of Pro Wrestling Illustrated and the appointment of the first Pakistani Indian American as X division champion. Ali stated, over the past 6 months, we've made great progress as a company. Today, TNA has the strongest fan base in the world. That's debatable. We've made historic investments in rebuilding our X division and lowering the number of senior citizens on our roster and expanding affordable tickets to a record number of fans worldwide. Actually, that is true. That last line, that last line is true. Despite a successful run, Ali chose to step down to focus on his independent career. He said, "It has been a great honor of my life to serve as your X Division champion, and while it has been my intention to seek re-election, I believe it is in the best interest of my party and the X Division for me to stand down and focus solely on fulfilling my independent obligations for the remainder of my term." Ali's departure marks the end of a significant chapter in TNA. So I think that his run in TNA was fantastic. I really do. He completely turned me around on him, and that happens. Like, I honestly was not excited to see him in TNA. I really wasn't. I was just like, it's another WWE fired, and he's gonna come over here and do his WWE bullshit. And I would much rather, and I still am like this too. I would much rather TNA focus on unknown and unsigned independent stars and create their own stars. I think that's kind of what's been missing in TNA. Like, they have some of that, like, Ace Austin and Chris Bay and those guys, but they just haven't been doing that for a little bit. Like, that hasn't really been their focus. They really do focus on guys off the scrap heap of WWE and AEW. So I think that it would behoove them to do more of, more scouting and getting unnamed and unsigned talent out there. But you know what? I also have to say that in this specific case, Mustafa Ali, and there's other cases, Steve Macklin, clearly, where getting off the scrap heap has actually benefited the company. And I think that Mustafa Ali had one of the great X Division runs of like the last decade. No, I'm not kidding. I thought it was fantastic. And then the way that it peaked at the end there with Speedball Bailey in front of 3,500 fans, he put over Bailey strong, and to where now Bailey will probably have a really good run as the X Division champion. I say that was fantastic. So kudos to Ali. I thought that he really did have an amazing run, and I'm curious to see what he's going to do next. My prediction is that he will go to AEW, but I don't think that him returning to TNA is out of the question. He wasn't at the taping last night in Philadelphia, and he's not currently booked for the taping tonight. He still has independent dates on his calendar as he started advertising. But maybe as we get closer to Bound for Glory, or even afterwards, maybe we see him return. But Ali, man, I really dug Ali's run here. So let's go to the chat. Billy says Tampa area is a good wrestling city. MLW did 600 in St. Petersburg earlier this month. Yeah. And let's see. Io says Matt Cardona pops up there and there. I guess we'll see what Ali wants to do. And now we know why Nemeth title match was rushed with no build as a TV match. Yeah, they really just wanted to end. They wanted Ali to put over their top two champions in the company on his way out, and he did just that, and he did it beautifully. And so honestly, after losing two big matches in a row, I think it really is smart for him to go away for a while. And if he is coming back, which I am on the fence about, I don't like if I were betting, I would bet that he is not returning. But I'm not so bullish on him not returning like I have been with other people. I think it is a real possibility that he'll come back, but I think that it's very, very likely that he is not returning. But who knows? Like he might get out there, work a couple of dates, and then he might negotiate with other companies, and then realize, like, you know what, I kind of dug what we were doing in TNA, and I really do think, like, seeing him in the ring with Nemeth last night, he's not like very much smaller than Nemeth. I think Nemeth probably has like 15 pounds on him and a couple of inches. Like I think that he looked great with Nemeth in the ring, and I think that he can mix it up with the heavyweights in TNA. And it would not shock me to see him take a couple months off and then just come right back. And then instead of being in the X division, he could focus on that upper mid card or even main event scene and be kind of seen as one of those guys. I think that's a real possibility. Now I've seen some people out there, fans really, and say, well, now that Mustafa Ali's gone, maybe TNA could go make a play for Bobby Lashley. I don't think that Mustafa Ali was making nowhere near what Bobby Lashley would command. Bobby Lashley is a WWE main eventer, and Mustafa Ali was bottom of the card at best, pre-show act at best in WWE. And a lot of that was his own doing. It wasn't because he wasn't talented. It wasn't because or anything like that. It was because he was kind of a pain in the ass. He was a malcontent in WWE. He was just completely unhappy there for years, which happened. So when you're acting like that, and he was very public about it on social media and all that stuff, he actively was asking for his release, and he did it on social media. So of course they're not going to get behind the guy. Of course they're not going to push the guy. But he was like, he made his name on 205 Live, and then they brought him up, and he was part of the Retribution act that flopped because it was supposed to be a take on Antifa, and that whole thing flopped. And so after that, they didn't know what to do with the guy, and then he wanted out because I think had he got his release when he asked for it, he absolutely would have had a run in AEW, absolutely. But now the guy's a bit older, and then he was set on the shelf for a couple of years, and
And now I don't think it's a lock that he goes to AEW. But there's also, Tony Khan has stated that he really does want to focus on Ring of Honor. It would not shock me to see him bring in Ali for Ring of Honor. That wouldn't shock me. So, absolutely. See, Billy says, also, if you bring in Lashley, you want to pay MVP also. It would be significantly more expensive than Ali. Yeah, I think Lashley and MVP is a package deal. And Lashley's not going to come cheap. I happen to think that it would be worth the investment. And I know Bobby Lashley's almost 50, but the guy is still in immaculate condition. He is he was a WWE main eventer for years, former WWE champion, former TNA champion, TNA main eventer for years. The fan base knows him, the fan base loves him, and I think that they would get behind him. And I think the act with MVP, even if like they don't bring in the Hurt Business and they're just bring in Lashley and MVP as like that act with just them two, where MVP is his manager, I am with that too. Like, I don't think that you have to have the Hurt Business for them to get over. I think that I don't think Shelton Benjamin is necessary, to be honest with you. And I love Shelton, but I think there's probably a reason why TNA hasn't never brought him in. But MVP and Lashley have a history in TNA. I think it would work. I really do. But yeah, man, wish the best for Ali.